I'm going to welcome our first guest here today, Suzanne Seed, out of Chicago, flying in from the Windy City. How are you?
Good.
Good. How are you enjoying the festival thus far?
Fine.
You just got in, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
So glad to have you for such an exciting film. We're going to get into that in a second. Have you been to New York or Long Beach before?
Not Long Beach, no.
But New York City, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, around New York.
Give me a little history. I'd like to get to know you as a person a little bit.
Well, I started off as a photographer, photojournalist, and now I'm writing mostly. And I write now mostly plays about all the things you're not supposed to talk about, like religion and politics.
Wonderful.
And
So you have bravery in your family.
orneriness, we call it. Yeah.
Very good. So the film that is going to be, and I want to get you there on time, it's going to be premiering today or at the Long Beach International Film Festival. It's called PAUL of Playboy. This was your husband, who passed about a year ago, you told me, who was, you tell me, a commercial artist?
Well, he started out as just an artist, and then he went to the New Bauhaus in Chicago after the war, the Institute of Design, became a graphic designer and an art director, and freelanced, and then went to work for Playboy.
Playboy the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
What year did Playboy come on the scene? The 50s, right?
52. Oh, gosh, how could I forget?
I think it was 52.
52, yeah, and then really late in 52.
And your husband came to work at Playboy at what year?
Well, 52. There was no one, just Hefner and
Unbelievable.
him. Hefner wanted an art director and found him, and they started it. So they just kind of taught each other.
So give me the setting. Where was this? And he gets this idea for a magazine, and your husband, Art, is there to make sure that all the graphics are right for the printed magazine. There was no internet, of course.
Well, at first they didn't have any money, and Art was doing a lot of the illustrations himself. And then calling on artists he knew from the Art Institute, Institute of Design, and so he was using artists as illustrators, which was innovative. And they're just piecing it together.
Amazing, right?
At first they had to buy stories and articles that had been published elsewhere, and then, of course, it grew.
Sure. There were some illustrations in there. I remember as a boy in the 70s, I was
Lots.
very interested in those illustrations. Actually, it is a great, great piece of American
Actually, it was
history.
famous for having a lot of real illustrations.
I know that, yeah.
On real articles, and the girly parts, the Playmate.
Just the in-between thing.
Yeah, the Playmate. The Playmate was more Hefner's thing.
Right.
And everything else was Art's thing. And Art took the job because Hefner said he'd give him total freedom so that he could hire the kind of artist he thought should be in magazines and change the way magazine illustration was done. And Hefner promised him, absolutely, you're the art director. What you say goes. So they hardly ever disagreed. And if they did, Art always won.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
What city was that in that you're
Chicago.
describing? That was also Chicago. I didn't realize that. I always think of Playboy as California. Later on, it became California, right?
Well, only that Hefner came and lived
Gotcha.
in
The
California.
headquarters were always Chicago.
Yeah, he just lived there. He wasn't doing a whole lot. I mean, he liked to be involved, but by the time he moved there.
So whose idea was it to document this and make this a film? His life, is it his life, or is it everything about what he did commercially? And
It's really about. It's very deceptive because you see the logo. Oh yeah, the logo, Playboy, all this, But really, what was exciting about Art was how innovative he was, and what a great mentor he was to illustrators and artists, and that because Playboy kind of went a bit downhill. People don't know about its glory days and the golden age of illustration, which Art helped bring on. So they don't know what it was like. They think they know, Playboy. And so this film is really not that much about Playboy. I mean, certainly all of the innovative things that Art did for Playboy as an art director, and all of the artists that he introduced, but it's also about him as a person. And what's remarkable there is that he started drawing as a little kid and never stopped until he was 93 and 6 months before he died. And the work he was doing then was brilliant.
Isn't that so? Right?
I mean, there was no. I'm a student of art history, so I know, there's usually a little decline.
How old was he
Just
when he passed?
93.
So 93. My grandfather, I told you, was a musician. He put out 9 CDs from 85 years old to 95 years old. He
Oh
died
my
in it.
God.
So you think about that, and he used to tell me, he was very frank about it. He said, "Look, I got to do as much as I can before I go." He just said that, and
Good for him.
that's a way to go. And it's wow, that's a blessing to be able to have that passion to put it out.
It is, and art was like ridiculously creative, just compulsively, passionately creative. Never stopped. Everything he touched, he's played with and did things with, and was an artist, on so many fronts, even composing.
So I feel like this movie would have had to have been in planning and/or production when he was alive.
Yeah, and he was struggling. They had some tape from earlier in his life, but he was struggling with macular degeneration, aphasia, where you can't find the words always, and dementia, falls, everything you could imagine. But somehow he got around everything with creativity. It was like a miracle. He would just, if he couldn't find the right word, he'd turn to poetry or puns or anything.
Suzanne, whose idea was it to put a movie out and document your husband's creativity and talents?
Well, a woman I know who's a writer and had wanted to do films, thought she should start with a film about art because she knew a lot about him and was impressed by his work,
So
not
this-
just the Playboy
Right.
and not just the logo.
So, I mean, describe. A phone call comes over and it's like, look, we really need to make a movie about art. Was it always a movie? Was it going to be a book? Was it always set out to be a movie?
She wanted to do a film. She had studied filmmaking, and so I said, well, you'll have to convince him. He was very reticent.
Okay.
I said, okay, so we go out to dinner. Your husband convinced him.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then, so it happened. So, at the point that there was a decision to make a film, how long ago was that?
It took about 4 years.
Okay.
It's been 4 or 5 years since they
Okay.
started.
So, roughly 2014. And where has the film been shown? Has it been shown at other film festivals? How has it been received? Tell me what people walk away with.
There's a bit of a problem because people think it's about Playboy.
Wow.
And there you see that big logo in the background. He's famous for that. Art always joked, oh my God, when I die, all people will remember is,
Yeah.
oh, I did that logo that you see everywhere. And oh my God, he was so much more than that, especially in his personal artwork. And then he started having exhibitions finally.
So we should point this out. This very famous logo, and I will show this on this camera. Everybody knows this. This very famous bunny. How did it come about? Why was it a bunny, for example? Is this a good story?
Well, Esquire and the New Yorker had cartoon logos.
Okay.
Those, I can't remember the names, but they were characters. They were cartoon characters. So Hefner had a cartoonist draw a cartoon, and it was kind of awful. And Art said, oh, no, we need something, simpler. So then he drew a cartoon for Hefner. Then on his own, he just made a logo because he needed something to use as a logo, like ending articles, your little thing on the end of an article tells you you're at the end.
Right.
And so he started using it because, oh, this is a logo. Nobody asked him to make a logo. So then he started using it on the cover because that's the first principle. You familiarize your clients with your logo.
Sure.
And he started putting it somewhere on the cover, like as a highlight in an eye, as a cufflink, and it became a game to find it. So it's like the best marketing campaign you could do.
So I have to ask this because there's the famous story about the college student who made the Nike logo and was paid $64 for it. So,
Right.
I mean, he was an employee, right?
No,
where I'm going.
He wasn't. He was not paid for it. He wasn't asked to do it. He wasn't paid for it. And then, it just started being used.
Right.
And it was like really valuable to them.
Right.
But it was in limbo. So they asked him if he just signed something, and he said, oh, well, okay.
So he signed his rights over.
Yeah.
So, so this is in their group of assets as a trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. What a story.
Of course, it's not really Playboy anymore. It was bought by a private equity company.
Oh, okay. So times have changed. What else would you like folks to know that are watching this, that are in the film community? Maybe you want to talk to other filmmakers. Maybe you want to talk about the filmmaker, the actual people that did it.
One of the most
who was the director?
Jennifer Hu Kwang.
Yeah. I talked to her.
Jinping.
Right. Good.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She did a book about growing up during the Cultural Revolution in China and turned to filmmaking. But the most important thing that people should know about art is that there's probably no other art director in history that that mentored and commissioned so many artists and not just illustrators, artists and illustrators. Probably none in history, because not just because it was a long time that he did it, but because he used a lot of illustration. Now it's all photo illustration.
Yeah, more digital.
And digital, and then and he's very beloved in that community, in the design community and by illustrators. He's like this huge father figure.
Wonderful.
And at Playboy too, he was the father figure.
That's so
to
great.
Everybody Christian down, it was like daddy.
So this film is showing today in Lynbrook Theater. You'll be there, obviously. This will be published after that. So give people an idea of where they can see this film, whether it be at another film festival or...
I don't know.
Will this eventually go to Amazon or any of those
Well,
distribution
that's why you go to
points?
film festivals, is to find a distributor.
Exactly.
And so that's in process now.
Good. Good. So right now it's a little coveted secret, and we're talking about it. And
So
I
anybody
feel
who
privileged
wants
that I was
to
able to talk to
be
you.
a distributor, yeah.
Suzanne, I understand you're working on a website to uphold your late husband's legacy. For now, people can go to paulofplayboy.com.
I am putting together some books of his, with all his drawings. He left behind a lot of drawings, and they're in various projects. And well, one wasn't actually a project, but sorting through his work, I found he never complained about all of his illnesses and macular degeneration, horrible for an artist. But he wrote and drew about it. And so I put all those together, and that's going to be a book
Very
called
nice.
Every Line is a Road.
Wow.
And it's, I think it'll be useful for people because it's about coming to terms with illnesses and not just, tracking your downhill,
That is so valuable.
journey. He was very whimsical and philosophical about all these things that happened to him, even the macular degeneration, going blind.
He had
It's
an
just
understanding.
amazingly, because he was just so passionately creative, I think, he was amazingly philosophical and whimsical about these things, and I think that should be shared.
I agree.
I really...
That's unique. In
want
a
people
whiny
to-
society such as what we have, that's a great place to be.
Yeah,
That's what I would
yeah.
say. Suzanne, thanks for joining us. I want
Thank
people
you.
to see this story and most of all know your husband. He looked like a fun guy. I can tell.
A sweet guy, yeah.
Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.